A tense hush falls over the diner as a group of men at the corner booth growl under their breath, glaring at the young black family seated nearby. One of the men slams his fist on the formica table, splintering its chipped edge, and mutters a slur loud enough for everyone to hear. The mother tightens her grip on her toddler's hand, offering a comforting smile through trembling lips. The diner's owner, Jake Turner, wipes his hands on a faded towel and strides over, planting himself between the family and the hostility. "We don't tolerate that here," he says firmly, voice carrying over the clatter of coffee cups. The aggressors fall silent, shifting uncomfortably as Jake offers the family fresh orange juice on the house. In that moment, community and courage eclipse hatred, reminding us that one person's stand against injustice can change everything. If this scene moved you, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next chapters of Emma, Alex, and Sophia's unforgettable journey. Early morning light spills through dusty windows as Sophia Everett, impeccably dressed and unmistakably out of place, settles into the corner booth. Her tailored coat, a deep midnight blue, seems to swallow the faded diner decor, while her polished boots rest on linoleum scuffed by decades of diner boots. She glances around, eyes darting from the steam rising off coffee mugs to the cracked leather seat beneath her. The menu before her is smeared with old grease stains. The price is modest. This isn't the Ritz she's accustomed to, but without her wallet, she has no choice but to swallow her pride. Behind the counter, Alex Turner moves with quiet precision. A single father in his late 30s, Alex learned long ago that every minute in the diner counts. Each pancake flip and coffee pour keeps the bills paid, and his daughter's future afloat. Today he notices something in Sophia's posture. Her shoulders curve inward and her fingers tremble as she lifts a ceramic mug. He's seen that look before, the look of someone who's lost more than just cash. He dabs his towel at a smudge on his apron, then approaches her booth menu in hand. "Morning, ma'am," he says, voice warm. "What can I get you?" Sophia blinks, startled, back to the present. She ducks her chin, hiding her racing thoughts. "Just coffee," she murmurs, voice barely above a whisper. "Coming right up." Alex turns to the espresso machine, steam hissing as hot water hits the grounds. He fills a sturdy mug and sets it before her with a gentle clink. She cradles the mug, searching for calm in its warmth. Alex waits, arms folded, reading the room. He senses she's wrestling with more than hunger, but he doesn't pry. Instead, he hovers with genuine concern. "Table 5's ready when you're set," he offers. Sophia nods, her fingers still wrapped around the cup. She lifts it, summoning courage. Just as she raises the handle, her jaw clenches. Her other hand dives into her coat pocket, then freezes. Her face drains of color as she pats every interior seam in frantic confusion. She exhales, panic bubbling to the surface. I think I lost my wallet," she admits, voice cracking. Alex's heart tugs. 3 years ago, when his wife died and left him with a newborn daughter, he faced the same paralyzing dread: how to keep food on the table when the credit card declined, how to smile through shame. Now, faced with another person's shame, he doesn't hesitate. He unsnaps his apron, peels it off, and slides a crisp bill across to her. "Don't worry about it," he says, eyes kind. "Breakfast is on me." Sophia's lips tremble. She rises, clutching his arm. "No, you don't understand. I can't just—" He shakes his head, firm but gentle. "I get it. Sometimes folks need a little grace. Sit tight." He ducks back behind the counter, whisking eggs, flipping hashes, flipping through his own memories of hardship. When he returns with her plate, Sophia stares at the steaming eggs, the golden yolk, the buttered toast. Gratitude floods her features, mingling with vulnerability. After placing her meal, Alex leans in. "We all have days when life feels too big. You're not alone." She meets his gaze, surprise flickering. "Thank you," she whispers, voice raw. Across the diner, Alex's daughter Emma watches from her coloring booth. 7 years old, she's already too familiar with worry. When she sees the stranger's relief, Emma tucks her crayons and approaches. "Hi, I'm Emma," she chirps. "Do you like pancakes here?" Her bright smile shines in contrast to the diner's muted tones. Sophia's eyes soften. I haven't tried them yet," she admits. "May I?" Emma giggles and beckons her over. "Follow me." They move to the main counter where Alex pours fresh batter on the griddle. Emma beams as her dad flips a pancake high in the air. Turning back to Sophia, Alex says, "I'll be right back with coffee and another pancake on the house." Sophia watches him go, realizing that this unassuming man has given her more than a free meal. He's offered dignity and kindness, a lifeline in her crisis. She finds herself hoping against every instinct trained by boardrooms and balance sheets that she might find more here than she ever expected. Rising from the booth, she offers Emma a gentle smile. "Thank you, Emma. You're very kind." Emma nods sagely. "That's what we do in Turner's Diner." She skips back to her coloring, and Sophia takes a steadying breath, the weight of her missing wallet less commanding now. As Alex returns with a fresh cup and fluffy pancake, Sophia reaches for her purse but hesitates. The leather clasped in her hand feels foreign. Instead, she places it lightly on the counter. "I'll sort this out," she says to Alex, voice steadier. "I promise." He offers a reassuring nod. "Take your time." Sophia settles at the counter, taking a bite of pancake. The sweetness cuts through her anxiety, and for the first time that morning, she allows herself a moment of peace. Outside, the world goes on, cars hum, neon signs flicker. But inside the diner, time slows as a simple act of kindness reshapes an unexpected encounter. In that instant, neither Sophia nor Alex could know how deeply their lives would entwine, nor how far a shared meal could open doors to stories yet to be told. Sophia's cheeks burned as Alex set the plate before her 3 perfectly scrambled eggs, golden and pillowy, accompanied by 2 slices of buttered toast that glistened in the early light. The diner's overhead fluorescents hummed softly, illuminating the steam that curled off her coffee cup and the subtle lines of wear on the cracked formica counter. She reached out, fingers hovering near the plate, and fought the urge to recoil from the kindness he'd just shown. "I really should pay you back," she murmured, voice trembling like a leaf in a breeze. "I can't just accept this." Alex leaned against the counter, wiping his hands on a towel that had seen better days. His apron was sprinkled with flour from the pancakes he'd been flipping, and a faint scent of maple syrup clung to its threads. He offered her a gentle smile that reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Sophia, I mean it, no need. Guests here look out for each other. Just enjoy your breakfast." She swallowed, hard eyes flitting to the booth behind her, where a pair of truckers eyed the scene with mild curiosity, then back to the local farmers huddled over their coffee mugs in the next corner. None of them knew who she was or what she'd left behind in the big city. To them, she was just another traveler down on her luck. Yet she felt exposed, as if every eye in the room had suddenly measured her worth by the size of her wallet or the lack of one. The truckers exchanged glances. One of them, a burly man with a bushy mustache, frowned and nudged his companion. "You seen that, Jim?" "That lady's plate just got handed over like charity." Jim shrugged, lifting his mug in a mock salute. "Small towns, Bill." "We take care of folks." Sophia forced herself to breathe, following Alex's gaze back to her eggs. She raised her fork, cut a neat triangle, and brought it closer to her lips. The first bite was warm and tender, dusted with a hint of black pepper, grounding her in the moment. She closed her eyes, letting the flavor wash away the last of her panic. "See," Alex said. "Nothing to worry about." She nodded, and for the first time that morning, she let herself relax. She took another bite, this one accompanied by a sip of coffee. Creamy strong. Nothing like the precise pour-overs she usually drank in Manhattan's trendiest cafes. Here, it tasted of resilience and routine. Emma Turner. Alex's 7-year-old daughter peeked around the corner of her coloring booth and waved. Her crayons lay strewn across the tabletop, emerald green, sunflower yellow, sunset orange, their vibrant hues echoing her boundless energy. Emma carried a half-finished drawing, a family of 3, standing before a small house under a smiling sun. She spotted Sophia and hopped down, sandal slaps echoing on the worn linoleum. "Do you like my picture?" Emma asked, pressing it toward her. Sophia set down her fork and examined the crayon strokes, bold and unsteady, but full of heart. She smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft. Emma beamed. "You can color with me after you finish eating." Sophia glanced at Alex, whose easy grin encouraged her to indulge. She scooted her plate aside and joined Emma at the booth, setting aside her eggs. The locals fell silent for a moment, surprised by the child's spontaneity, but then their chatter resumed the diner's rhythm undisturbed. "Sophia, right?" Alex said, sliding into the seat opposite her. He watched as she scooped a crayon into her hand. Why don't you tell me a little about yourself? She paused, crayon poised. She wasn't used to revealing much. Her life as CEO of a luxury hotel chain relied on keeping personal details tightly contained. But here across from a man who'd just paid her bill without a second thought, the usual barriers felt strangely unnecessary. I'm on a business trip, she said carefully. I work in hotels, big ones. She traced a squiggly line across Emma's paper, her strokes deliberate. I got separated from my group, lost my wallet, and I guess I panicked. Alex nodded, handing her a napkin. Been there. I run this diner, but I've picked up plenty of odd jobs, plumbing deliveries, babysitting to keep things afloat. Sometimes the simplest kindness means more than any paycheck. Sophia's gaze softened. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. She glanced at the farmers as they whispered among themselves and then looked back at Alex's sincerity in her eyes. I'm not used to needing help. Asking for help doesn't make you weak, he said quietly. It makes you human. She considered that, letting the words sink in. Here, no one cared about her stock options or quarterly earnings. They cared about breakfast, about ensuring her eggs were hot and her coffee was fresh. And in that care, she found something rare, genuine connection. Emma clapped her hands. Color with me now, please. She handed Sophia a fresh sheet and a rainbow assortment of crayons. Sophia picked up a sky blue crayon, letting its waxy tip glide across the paper. The image that emerged was nothing like the corporate charts she normally produced. Floppy pancakes towered beside a steaming coffee cup, red and white checkered tablecloth, beneath them two stick figures grinning happily. Alex watched her draw a ripple of warmth in his chest. You've got a knack for this, he said. Sophia laughed softly. It's harder than it looks. Emma chimed in. You'll get better if you practice. She chose a bright green crayon and started adding rolling hills around the diner. The truckers, their curiosity piqued, ambled over for a closer look. Bill pointed at the drawing. You've captured our diner pretty well there. He ticked the tower of pancakes. That's the best stack in town. Sophia glanced up, meeting the trucker's gaze. Thank you, she said. It's thanks to Alex's cooking. As the morning rush tapered off, the diner's patrons began to drift away, leaving behind empty plates and satisfied smiles. Sophia sat back, lifting a hand to smooth her hair. She felt a strange lightness, something she hadn't known since her corporate responsibilities multiplied beyond measure. Alex cleared the last dishes and caught her eye. Feeling better. She nodded, looking around at the chipped countertops, the faded neon sign buzzing outside the regulars' familiar laughter. More than I expected, she admitted. He offered her a genuine, unguarded smile. That's what a good breakfast does. Sophia chuckled, filling her coffee cup one more time. And a good stranger, she added. Alex tilted his head. Friends say a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. She considered that and raised her cup in salute. To new friends, she said. To new friends, he echoed, lifting his own mug. They clinked cups, and in that gentle resonance, something shifted. For Sophia, the weight of big city anxieties lifted just enough to let hope slip in. For Alex, a glimpse of possibility. Maybe his simple diner could become more than a business. Maybe it could be the heart of a richer story than he'd dared to imagine. When Emma tugged at Sophia's sleeve to show her another drawing, Alex returned to the counter with a final plate, half a pancake left untouched. He placed it before her with a nod. In case you need a snack later. Sophia smiled, a warmth blooming in her chest. I'll take it, she said, tucking the plate beside her. The diner's doors chimed as new customers trickled in, each greeted by Alex's steady welcome. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, promising new beginnings. And inside, over simple breakfast fare, two strangers found an unexpected connection that neither price tag nor status could measure, one built on kindness, one quiet moment at a time. Emma hovered at the edge of Sophia's booth like a butterfly drawn to a bright flower. In her small hand, she clutched a crayon-stained notebook filled with wild scribbles of suns and houses and stick-figure families. She peered up at Sophia, whose tailored coat now seemed less intimidating and more like armor peeled away by morning light and warm kindness. Emma's dark curls bounced as she summoned courage beyond her 7 years. You're the lady who lost her wallet, she announced, voice clear and curious. Sophia looked up from her half-finished pancake, surprise, softening the lines of her corporate poise. She offered Emma a gentle smile. Yes, that was me, she answered, voice warm. I'm very grateful to Alex for saving my breakfast. Emma nodded earnestly, sliding onto the seat beside Sophia. The formica beneath her legs squeaked in protest as she crossed one bare foot over the other. You're kind of fancy looking, Emma observed bluntly, eyes widening at Sophia's polished boots and silk scarf. Is that your real coat? She reached out, fingertips hovering above the fabric before drawing back as if afraid to break a spell. Sophia laughed, a soft, genuine sound that made Emma grin in return. It is, Sophia admitted, tracing a finger along the coat's lapel. I usually wear this in big city places where people are always in a hurry. Emma blinked. Big city like New York? Her face scrunched with concentration, as if trying to picture skyscrapers towering above small-town diners. Sophia nodded, and Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement. I've only seen New York on TV. There are so many people there. She flipped open her notebook to a page filled with rainbow-colored doodles. I drew it once, but I forgot to add you in my picture. Sophia leaned closer to examine the drawing jagged gray blocks of buildings against a bright blue sky, stick figures in twirling dresses and tiny cars honking between them. This is wonderful, Sophia said, pointing to a small stick figure with a yellow dress. Is this you? Emma nodded vigorously. That's me and that's Daddy, she said, drawing a short line to another figure. He works here. And that she pointed at a tiny gray smudge as the diner. Sophia traced the smudge and laughed again. I see. And who would I be? Emma tapped the page with a purple crayon. You'd be right here, she said, drawing a little heart around the smudge, because you're part of the family now. Sophia's throat tightened. She pressed her crayon down, making a heavier line. I don't know about that, she stammered, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. She glanced at Alex, who nodded encouragement from the counter. She turned back to Emma with a softness in her eyes that surprised even herself. Family is a big word, she said, voice wavering. I'm not sure I deserve that. Emma's gaze hardened with the solemnity of a tiny judge. You do, she declared. My mommy couldn't stay, but Dad stayed. She jabbed a finger at Alex, who winked at Emma before slipping behind the counter to refill the coffee pot. And Daddy says kindness is how families start. Sophia swallowed, absorbing the innocence and wisdom in Emma's words. She reached out and ruffled Emma's curls, careful not to disrupt the crayon curls. Thank you, Emma, she whispered. You're very brave. Emma beamed. She tossed her notebook on the seat and jumped down to retrieve a fresh sheet of paper. Here, she said, handing it to Sophia along with a blue crayon. Let's make a picture together. You draw where you want to be, and I'll draw us here. Sophia hesitated for only a moment before taking the crayon. She pressed it to the paper and drew a small house next to the diner, complete with smoke curling from a chimney. Next to it, she drew 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small standing hand in hand under a bright sun. Emma added wild strokes of pink flowers and green grass, her little tongue poking out in concentration. When they finished, Alex returned coffee pot in hand. He paused to look at their collaborative drawing, pride shining in his eyes. Looks like a perfect family, he said softly. Sophia glanced up, tears glimmering. It does, she agreed, voice thick with emotion she hadn't let herself feel in years. Emma clapped her hands. Now I want pancakes. She bounded off to the counter, climbing onto a stool where Alex ladled batter onto the griddle. The sizzle of fresh pancakes filled the diner as Sophia and Alex exchanged a look, one of mutual understanding that something profound had begun in this quiet corner booth. Sophia folded the completed drawing and tucked it into her coat pocket, pressing it close to her heart. She looked at Alex, then at Emma, and in that moment, the weight of her old-life boardroom battles, late-night strategy sessions seemed to fade like morning mist. Here in the warm glow of a roadside diner, she had found something she didn't know she was searching for. Belonging forged not by balance sheets, but by simple acts of kindness and a daughter's fearless curiosity. Sophia stepped out of the diner into the late morning sun, her stomach still humming from Alex's pancakes, but her chest tightening with a new wave of panic. She patted her pockets again. No phone, no wallet, nothing except the crumpled paper drawing from Emma tucked in her coat. The quiet hum of deserted Main Street pressed in around her. She should have planned better, but her mind had been caught in the whirlwind of gratitude and surprise. Alex appeared at her side, wiping his hands on a rag. "Need a ride?" he asked, voice gentle. "I'm off in half an hour. Nearest bank's 3 miles west might be the quickest fix." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." He shrugged modestly. "Just pay it forward someday. Come on." He pointed toward this battered pickup parked under the diner's faded sign. "Hop in." She climbed into the passenger seat, careful not to soil the beige upholstery. The truck smelled of warm vinyl and stale coffee grounds, a comforting aroma compared to her usual scent of polished leather and antiseptic boardrooms. Alex slid in beside her, started the engine, and the vehicle rumbled into life. They rolled onto the side road, golden fields stretching to either side. Slow-moving farm trucks and the occasional late-model sedan passed, but mostly it was just the two of them and the wind humming past the open window. After a stretch of silence, Sophia cleared her throat. "I feel ridiculous," she said, staring out at the passing cornstalks. "I'm a CEO. I should have spare cards, an assistant on standby, a driver. Instead, here I am stranded." Alex glanced over. "I've made a career out of not having backup plans. Single dad life doesn't come with warranty. You run on empty more often than you think." Her gaze dropped to her lap. "Empty is a good word," she admitted. "In my world, empty means deadlines missed, stock prices plummet, reputations dive. It's always a race." He nodded toward the next bend. "Here's the bank up ahead." They wound down a narrow driveway to a squat brick building, Wells Fargo with its green sign weathered by sun. Alex killed the engine and turned in his seat to face her. "I'll wait. You go inside, get a temporary card. I'll be right here." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." She squeezed his hand briefly before stepping onto the cracked asphalt. Inside the bank, the air was cool and dry. She joined the queue behind two farmers disputing fertilizer costs and fumbled for words. When the teller finally called her forward, she slid over her ID and stammered through the explanation wallet. "Lost corporate emergency need temporary debit card." The teller sighed sympathetically, stamped her paperwork, and handed her a thin plastic card. Back in the truck, Sophia sank into the seat, clutching the new card as if it were a lifeline. "I owe you," she said softly. Alex shook his head and started the engine again. "Come on. I've got more questions than bills to pay today. Tell me about your CEO life." She laughed wryly. "It's a gilded cage. Thousands of employees, millions of dollars at stake. My phone never stops chirping, emails, alerts, whispers of corporate espionage. I negotiate hotel deals in Bangkok at dawn and chair board meetings in London by dusk. There's no off switch." He shrugged into the turns. "Sounds exhausting." "It is. But it's all I know." She tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Until today." He glanced at her, eyebrows lifted. "Until breakfast." "Until breakfast," she confirmed. She exhaled. "I spent years chasing growth revenues, market share, brand recognition. But I've never once sat down with a child and drawn stick figures in crayon." Emma's face popped into her mind, her earnest smile, the way she'd insisted Sophia belong in that drawing. She folded her hands over the steering wheel. "I think I forgot what it felt like to be human," she admitted. Alex slowed at a stop sign. "Being human is messy. It's pancakes on shirts, spilled coffee, forgotten wallets. It's caring more than calculating." She studied his profile, strong jaw, gentle eyes, the way he tapped his fingers on the wheel. "You're not just saying that because you own a diner and have to feed people." He let out a low chuckle. "Maybe. Or maybe I know what matters when the lights of ambition dim." They pulled back onto the highway, and Sophia stared out at the rolling hills dotted with red barns and grazing cattle. "You're right," she said finally. "I've been so busy proving I could handle everything that I forgot how to stop and ask if I wanted any of it." Alex nodded, easing the truck through a widening curve. "What do you want, Sophia?" She bit her lip, considering. "I don't know," she said truthfully. "But I know I've never wanted this. Today has been the kind of messed up, unexpected gift that I didn't know I needed." He braked gently at the fork where the road split toward her planned route, back to the interstate. "I'll drop you off there," he said. "Or I can take you back to the diner if you'd rather talk more." Sophia looked at the horizon where the hills met the sky, soft pastel shades pooling above the earth. "Can we go back to the diner?" she asked softly. I'd like another minute of normal." He steered back toward the white clapboard building with its peeling red trim. "Normal's overrated." "But sure." They drove in companionable silence, the engines hum a gentle lullaby. When they pulled back into the parking lot, Emma darted out, waving wildly. "You made it. Did you get it?" she demanded before Sophia could even step from the truck. Sophia opened the door, ruffling her skirt. "I got it," she said, holding up the temporary card like a trophy. Emma cheered and clasped Sophia's hand. Alex climbed out to join them, and Emma turned to him. "Daddy, can we have pie tonight?" "Sophia can try some." He glanced at Sophia, who laughed. "I think I'd like that." As they stepped inside together, Sophia felt a warmth bloom in her chest, an ember sparked by shared confessions and open roads. She realized that for the first time in years, she wasn't running on empty. Ahead lay new possibilities, pancakes on shirts, crayon drawings, and a kind of connection she had only just begun to understand. Sophia hesitated in the doorway, blinking as her eyes adjusted to the soft glow of a single lamp in Alex's living room. His modest home was a far cry from the sleek condos and high-rise views she knew so well. A narrow hallway led past mismatched family photos. One of Emma at kindergarten graduation, another of Alex and his late wife standing under autumn leaves into a cramped dining space dominated by a fold-up card table and 3 mismatched chairs, one metal, one plastic, and one an old wooden stool. The threadbare rug beneath their feet had seen better days, but it exuded a warmth no marble floor ever could. Alex stood in the small kitchen alcove, removing the lid from a scratched pot. Steam curled upward, carrying the tangy scent of tomato sauce. On a baking sheet beneath the broiler lay garlic bread, the edges charred black, a testament to hurried multitasking. 2 plastic tumblers waited on the table, one filled with cola so dark it almost looked like coffee. He turned at her arrival, offering a shy grin. "Hope you're hungry." Sophia slipped off her heels, placing her purse on the counter, and offered him a grateful smile in return. "I could eat a horse," she teased, though her voice still trembled with lingering anxiety. She settled into the chair that creaked under her weight, and Alex ladled generous portions of spaghetti onto their plates. The noodles were overcooked soft, almost to the point of breaking, and the sauce clung in heavy globs. He set a piece of garlic bread before her, its crust threatening to flake into charcoal dust. She picked up her fork, bracing herself for the first bite. The sauce was rich with garlic and a hint of oregano. The noodles fell apart on her tongue. The garlic bread tasted of both smoky crunch and burnt edges. Sophia blinked, then laughed a genuine hearty sound that startled even herself. "It's perfect," she added, though her blouse now bore an errant tomato stain. Alex grinned relief, flooding his face. "If it doesn't kill you, it makes a great story." He cupped his tumbler and took a long drink of soda. "So, I've been meaning to tell you about last winter." Sophia dove into her spaghetti again, wiping a strand of sauce from her chin as she settled back. "I'm all ears." Alex leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. It was 2 in the morning, and Emma had a fever that wouldn't break. Her radiator had busted, leaking steam and water all over her bedroom floor. I was half asleep, half terrified of her catching cold, so I got out my toolbox and tried to patch it myself. Sophia's fork paused midair. "You fixed a radiator at 2 a.m.? He shrugged modestly. "It was either that or wake up half the block waiting for a plumber." I stood in my boxers on a wet floor, wrench in hand, steam clouding my vision. Finally got it to hold pressure, but only after the valve rattled so loud I thought it might explode. I staggered back to bed at dawn, covered in soot and sweat, and Emma asked if I was building a rocket in her room. Sophia laughed, sauce flicking across the table. "Your daughter has quite the imagination." "She does. It's the only thing that keeps me going." Alex paused, eyes distant. "I didn't learn to tinker like that as a kid. I learned it because I had to. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Sophia's heart tightened. She felt a pang, an echo of late nights spent alone in glass-walled boardrooms, hammering out deal points long after her colleagues had gone home. "I can relate," she said softly. "In my world, I negotiate mergers at odd hours, juggling 1,000 moving parts. Last month, I had to secure financing for a project in Dubai while settling a hostile takeover in Milan. My suitcase never sees my bed, and my meetings bleed into dinners and weekends. He studied her face, noting the tension etched around her eyes. Sounds relentless. She nodded, swallowing over a mouthful of noodles. It is. I've built my career on being unstoppable, but sometimes I wonder what I'm missing. Sleep, yes, but also just being present. Alex reached across the table with a napkin and dabbed at a sauce splatter on his own shirt. Being present is messy. It's ruined clothes, burnt toast, late homework, and half-finished art projects. He glanced toward the living room where Emma's coloring supplies waited. Worth it, though. Sophia set her fork down and toyed with the napkin in her lap. I remember my grandmother's kitchen, real wood cabinet, sunlight through lace curtains, the smell of fresh bread. That was home. Now my kitchens are stainless steel and marble. I've forgotten how a warm kitchen feels. He nodded thoughtfully. You're welcome to ours anytime. His voice was quiet but earnest. Whether the food's perfect or not, the door's always open. Sophia felt a lump in her throat. Here was a man who had faced devastation and loss, whose world was defined by a daughter's needs and a life rebuilt from scratch, yet he spoke with generosity beyond measure. She realized that his world, though modest, was rich in ways her salary and status could never buy. Emma's footsteps pattered down the hallway, and she burst into the room carrying coloring pencils in a messy fist. "Daddy!" "I made dessert!" she chirped, setting a small bowl of chocolate pudding on the table. She grinned at Sophia. "Want some?" Sophia reached over to scoop a spoonful, letting Emma's warm grin chase away her lingering doubts. "I'd love to." As they finished dinner, spaghetti remnants mixed with pudding drips. Conversation shifted to lighter topics, favorite childhood games, dream travel destinations, the scariest moments each had endured. Laughter echoed off the walls, painted in soft yellow hues, mingling with the distant hum of summer cicadas outside the window. When the last pudding smear was wiped clean and the empty plates stacked in the sink, Sophia lingered at the table, running her fingers over the fold-up plastic. She thought of her life of boardroom precision and high-stakes decisions, and marveled that here, with overcooked dinner and charred bread, she felt more alive than she had in years. Alex stood beside her, offering a rag to dry the table. "You really didn't have to help me with dishes," he said. She took the rag, wiping the tabletop in broad strokes. "I wanted to," she replied. This is real." He returned her gaze with a softness that surprised her. Real is sometimes the best thing we can be. Sophia folded the rag and set it on the counter. She turned to look at the two men and a little girl she'd come to care for. And in that moment, she understood presence imperfect. Messy, unfiltered presence was a gift greater than any she'd ever given or received. Dinner on this fold-up table had fed her more than her hunger. It fed something deeper in her soul, something she was determined never to let go. Sophia pushed through the diner's swinging door before dawn, the familiar jingle echoing like a promise of new beginnings. The morning rush was still an hour away, but Alex was already behind the counter wiping down the coffee machine and arranging the syrup bottles with methodical care. He looked up at her arrival and gave an encouraging nod. "You ready?" he asked, holding out a faded apron. She took it with both hands, her corporate confidence shimmering uneasily. "I think so," she replied, looping it around her waist. The quilted fabric smelled faintly of last night's tomato sauce and morning coffee. She tied the strings with a determined tug, the knot feeling like a pledge. Alex pointed to the line of orders scrawled on a small chalkboard. "Let's start you with coffees and pancakes. I'll handle the kitchen. You okay with that?" She squared her shoulders. "Absolutely." Her voice sounded firmer than she felt. She lifted the metal pot of brewed coffee warmed by a low burner and filled each of the chipped ceramic mugs in 2 neat rows. The first customer arrived, Mrs. Jenkins, a retired school teacher who visited every Tuesday for her black-as-midnight coffee and a side of cottage cheese. "Mornin', Mrs. Jenkins," Sophia said, handing over the steaming mug. Mrs. Jenkins peered at her over half-moon glasses. "You're new," she observed calmly. "Alex said you'd be helping out." Sophia nodded, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. "First day," she admitted. Mrs. Jenkins offered a gentle smile. "Good to have you. Black just like I like it." The next customer was Earl, the grizzled truck driver, who swept in with a rumble of his boots. He tipped his cap and ordered a triple stack of pancakes with extra syrup and a side of scrambled eggs. Sophia attempted to flip a fluffy pancake in the air, an image of effortless grace she'd seen Alex perform countless times, but misjudged her angle. The pancake slithered off the spatula and plopped onto the floor with a soft splat. Earl's eyebrows shot up. Sophia bent to pick up the pancake's stomach, twisting. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice high-pitched. She scooped it up and dropped it in the trash without a second thought, grabbing a clean plate and fresh batter. Earl chuckled and leaned on the counter. "Don't worry, kid. First pancake's always a goner. Make the second one count." Sophia exhaled a shaky breath and redoubled her efforts. The next flip sent the pancake sailing onto the plate, a small victory met with Earl's approving nod. By mid-morning, the diner hummed with its familiar rhythm, dishes, clattering coffee machines gurgling Emma's laughter when she dashed in for a refill. Sophia refilled a mug, then turned to find a group of local farmers eyeing her approach. They each held a menu, scanning for today's special meatloaf and mashed potatoes. "One with gravy on the side," Tom, one farmer, said. Sophia nodded, trying to remember which gravy jar Tom preferred, the thicker brown gravy or the lighter turkey version. She consulted Alex with a quick glance. He winked and mouthed turkey gravy for Tom. She returned with a full plate and a drizzle on the side. "Perfect," Tom said, lifting his hat as he accepted the meal. Sophia's chest swelled with a quiet pride she'd never felt after closing a billion-dollar deal. The payoff came just after 10 when Alex handed her a stack of to-go cups. "I'm heading out back," he said. "Take these to the auto repair shop next door." Earl said he'd pick up a dozen on his way home. She gathered the cups, their plastic lids clacking in her arms, and strode outside. The early sun splashed over J&M Auto, its faded sign and rust-speckled garage door, a far cry from corporate facades. She knocked. The mechanic, a broad-shouldered man named Diego, grinned as he recognized Alex's handwriting on the order. "Hey, bossy," Diego teased. "Your apprentice brought the goods." Sophia laughed, extending the cups. "Hopefully they're still hot. Better than any gas station coffee," Diego said, accepting a cup. "Thanks, Sophia." He disappeared inside, and she turned back through the door, invigorated by the small but meaningful task. Inside, a lull settled. Sophia perched on a stool by the counter, catching her breath. Emma skipped over, plopping a coloring page before her. "Color break." Emma declared, her tiny hands already selecting crayons. Sophia placed the apron rack aside and slid into the booth. She picked up a red crayon and added flames beneath a car's wheels in Emma's drawing of J&M Auto. Emma clapped her hands. "You're pretty good." Sophia grinned, leaning in to see the orange sun Emma had drawn. "Thanks, Em. You're a great teacher." Emma giggled, then bounded away as a new wave of customers filed in. A couple of exhausted commuters. A young mom with a stroller, a high school basketball team, in matching jackets. Sophia jumped back into action, refilling coffee pots, noting which customer wanted extra cream. She even began to develop a system for balancing trays on the crook of her arm, as Alex had taught her last night. At one point, the diner filled to capacity, and she heard the rush voices overlapping orders called out the chinking of silverware. Sophia dashed between tables, each time feeling more confident. She dropped a plate once scrambled eggs skittering across the floor, but this time she laughed, scooped them up, and apologized with a grin that prompted the customer's hearty chuckle. When the clock struck 1, Alex returned, wiping his forehead. "How's my partner doing?" Sophia raised a brow. "Still standing." He laughed, setting a fresh pot of coffee on the burner. "That counts as a win." "You've got a knack for this." She offered a modest shrug. "I'm learning. Thanks for the crash course." He surveyed the busy room with an approving nod. "Community is a team sport. You're doing great." Sophia paused, watching a regular named Linda, her daily ritual turkey sandwich. No mustard, extra pickles wave as Sophia brought her food. Linda smiled, patted Sophia's hand, and said, "God bless you for working so hard, honey." Comfort bloomed in Sophia's chest. Here, her status as CEO of Fortune Hospitality meant nothing. What mattered was effort, decency, and the simple joy of meeting people's needs. She felt a sense of belonging she hadn't known she craved. As the lunch hour wound down, Emma reappeared with a plate of half-eaten cookies. "For you," she announced, her eyes dancing. Sophia accepted one eagerly, the buttery sweetness a perfect reward. Alex whisked plates and stacked them neatly. "All right, Em, let's give Sophia her final test," he said softly. Sophia exchanged a curious glance with Emma. "Tess?" He gestured to the last table, a father and son catching up over grilled cheese and tomato soup. Your final task, deliver their check and ask them if they'd like dessert. Sophia squared her shoulders and approached. The father and son looked up as she glided between their chairs. Here's your check, she said, placing it gently on the table. They nodded. Can I bring you anything for dessert? Cookies, pie, ice cream. The father beamed. You know what? Those chocolate chip cookies looked good earlier. One order, please. Sophia smiled broadly. Excellent choice. I'll be right back with fresh ones. She returned triumphantly with a plate of warm cookies and placed it before them. The boy's face lit up as he bit into one crumbs cascading onto his sweatshirt. The father laughed and thanked her. Sophia walked back to the counter, a surge of satisfaction in her veins. Alex clapped her on the shoulder. You nailed it. She removed her apron, heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Thank you for believing I could do this. He wrung out the towel. You believed it. He offered her a thumbs up as Emma hopped onto the counter. Dinner's on me tonight again. If you're up for more company. Sophia folded the apron and draped it over the rack. She glanced at the empty tables now bathed in afternoon light. I'd love that. As they turned off the lights and locked up the diner for the day, Sophia realized her corporate armor had softened. Layer by layer, spilled coffee by spilled coffee, until she felt something she hadn't in years, the quiet dignity of honest labor, the shared purpose of a community table, and the simple power of presence over perfection. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke as Sophia and Alex stepped out onto his creaky front porch. Emma was already inside, tucked into bed after a late-night story peeled from Alex's battered copy of Where the Wild Things Are. The porch light cast a warm pool of yellow against the dark sky, where a few bright stars winked above the silhouette of oak branches. Alex sank onto the wooden swing, its ropes groaning under his weight, and motioned for Sophia to join him. She settled on the opposite end, brushing her fingers along the rough-hewn seat, as if seeking its familiar grain. For a moment they simply listened, the steady thrum of the radiator in the living room, the rustle of leaves stirred by a soft breeze, the distant hum of a car on the highway. I've always loved this time of night, Alex said quietly, eyes trained on a single bright star overhead. After everything else settles, you can finally hear yourself think. Sophia followed his gaze, letting the vast indigo expanse above slowly unfold. It's peaceful, she agreed. In the city, I turn the TV on or grab my phone before I let the dark settle in. Too much quiet feels like too much time to think. He shifted on the swing, the wood creaking like an old song. Thinking can be dangerous. He glanced at her expression sober. Especially when you've been hurt before. She swallowed, fingers tightening around the swing's chain. You have no idea, she whispered. I've spent a lifetime building walls. In the boardroom, you learn quickly that vulnerability is a liability. Alex turned fully toward her, the porch light catching the faint lines around his eyes. I know about walls, he said. When my wife got sick, I built walls around Emma and me, kept everything neat and measured, convinced that if I controlled every detail, I could keep the pain out. Sophia's breath caught. She had sensed his grief in the soft shadows behind his eyes, but hearing it named felt like a kind of confession. I'm so sorry, she said, voice thick. He shook his head. Don't apologize. I wouldn't have traded a single moment of our life together, even the worst days, for safety. He traced a finger along the swing's wooden edge. But losing her, it made me afraid to hope again. Afraid that if I let someone close, I'd lose them too. Her heart pinched at his words. She slid off the swing and moved closer, kneeling on the porch boards beside him. Their knees nearly touched. I'm sorry, she repeated softer this time. I'm terrified of the same thing. She looked up at the sky, searching for the right words. What if I let myself want something real and it gets taken away? What if I open myself up and end up empty-handed again? He reached out and covered her hand with his own. That's what makes it hard, Alex said. But it's also what makes it worth doing. You don't have to go it alone. He paused, drawing in the cold night air. I've spent so long learning to protect my daughter and myself, I forgot that protecting means letting people in. Sophia swallowed, tears pricking her eyes. She looked down at their joined hands, his calloused, hers smooth, and felt the weight of unspoken promises between them. I've never met anyone who... Words failed her. She pressed her fingers to his palm. Thank you. He offered a small smile, eyes soft in the amber glow. You don't thank me for this. We're doing each other a favor breaking down walls together. The swing beneath them rocked gently, as if in agreement. Sophia lifted her gaze to meet his. I want to try, she said, voice steady, to let myself hope again. Alex nodded, relief flickering across his features. Good, he whispered, because I want that too. I want to see you smile without fear, to laugh without checking your phone for escape, to share my life with you if you'll have it. Her chest tightened, warmth spilling into her cheeks. She'd spent years securing boardrooms, calculating risks in neatly organized spreadsheets. Now here under the autumn stars, with the house quiet behind them and Emma's soft breathing a promise within, she felt the tidy world she'd built shift. Her corporate armor loosened its grip. I'll have it, she said, eyes glistening. I want to share it all. She paused, letting the words settle. I don't know what comes next, but I'm not afraid of figuring it out with you. He leaned forward, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. That's all I ask. His thumb circled the back of her hand. We'll take it one swing at a time. Sophia laughed softly, and the sound rippled across the porch. She slid closer until their shoulders touched. Together they looked out into the velvet sky stars, winking like distant hopes finally within reach. And that hush broken only by the slow creaking of the swing and the steady pulse of two hearts daring to beat as one, Sophia and Alex made an unspoken vow to face the unknown together. And for the first time in years, fear felt less like a wall and more like a threshold to something undeniably real. Sophia woke to a sliver of morning light filtering through the thin curtains, painting the small guest room in pale gold. For a moment she lay still, listening to the hush of the house. No urgent phone buzzes, no distant traffic sirens, just the quiet whisper of early autumn wind. Her gaze drifted to the walls where Emma's drawings fluttered like a bright gallery stick figures with giggling faces, rainbows arcing over a tiny diner, a yellow sun shining on three hearts. It struck her then how long it had been since she'd filled her world with anything so simple and genuine. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, feet finding the slippers waiting at the side. The quilt beneath her was soft hand-stitched by someone who had taken time to choose each fabric square. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and old books, comforting unhurried. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear and padded toward the door where a faint murmur drifted from the kitchen. Below Emma sat at the wooden table, her curls tousled from sleep coloring in a fresh sheet of paper. 2 yellow pancakes lay on her plate, one half eaten, and she hummed a silly tune as she tapped a green crayon. Alex stood at the stove, turning the last pancake in the pan, a crease of concentration on his brow. "Soph." Alex called gently, catching sight of her at the top of the stairs. "Morning," she smiled, descending the steps. "Good morning." Emma looked up, eyes bright. "You're up. I saved you a pancake." She scooted her plate forward, nudging the other pancake toward Sophia. Sophia sat and accepted the offering, its warmth pleasant against her fingertips. She bit into it, the flavor simple and honest, the taste of routine shared. She closed her eyes, letting the moment settle in her chest. Alex poured her a cup of coffee, black as she now preferred, and set it beside her plate. "Thought you might want to help with the lunch rush today," he said, tone tentative. "If you're up for it." She froze fork halfway to her mouth. The words carried a quiet weight, an invitation not just to work, but to belong, to choose this small community, instead of returning at once to her corporate empire. Her phone sat on the counter, dark, and unlit, its silence more compelling than any notification she'd receive. She had missed 2 urgent messages already, one from her CFO, another from a board member. A voice echoed in her mind. "This isn't your world, Sophia." And yet here in this humble kitchen, her pulse stilled. She began, then exhaled, pushing a stray pancake crumb aside. "I'd love to." Alex's relief was so genuine, it warmed her. He grinned and flipped another pancake onto Emma's plate. "Perfect." He glanced at Emma. "Em, you ready to show Sophia the ropes?" Emma twirled her crayon triumphantly. "Yes, first we refill the ketchup and mustard. Then we wash hands." Sophia laughed, standing to follow Emma's lead. She washed her hands at the sink, the warm water a balm after nights of stiff suits and polished shoes. Emma guided her back around the counter as Alex laid out orders scrawled on the chalkboard: grilled cheeses, BLT's, meatloaf. A line began to form of familiar faces, the two truckers from yesterday, a young couple holding hands, and Mrs. Jenkins with her black as midnight coffee. Sophia nodded greetings, offering each customer a morning "How are you?" instead of her usual curt "Yes, what can I get you?" The hesitance melted later into ease as she learned each routine: extra pickles for the known perfectionist, a side of gravy, but no peas for Tom, the farmer who visited after Sunday Bible study. At one point, she dropped a basket of fries, the tangle of golden sticks scattering across the floor. She froze mortified, but before she could apologize again, hand swooped down. Emma gathered the fries into a wink-worthy pile, then scooped them back into the basket. "Here you go," Emma announced proudly. "All better." Sophia blinked, grateful. "Thanks, Em. You're a star." Emma giggled and dashed off to refill the sugar bowl. Alex appeared at her side, handing her a fresh basket. "Not bad for your second spill of the day," he teased softly. "Ready for the next order?" She accepted it, her confidence building with each recovered mistake. She balanced plates on her arm, guiding them to tables with a steady smile, her heart sinking to the diner's gentle pulse. The clink of silverware, the low murmur of conversation, and the scent of frying bacon all folded into a rhythm that felt more genuine than any boardroom symphony. By midday, the diner's windows fogged with warmth and laughter. Sophia paused to catch her breath, looking at Alex wiping dishes at the sink. She realized she had gone hours without checking her phone, without thinking about her empire of hotels and deals. Here, the only empire was one built on shared breakfast and midday comfort fueled by the simple dignity of honest work. Alex glanced at her and offered a quiet thumbs up. She returned it, her lips curving into a genuine grin. Lunch winds down, a steady trickle of customers shifts toward takeout orders. As she refilled the last cup of coffee, Emma reappeared with a new drawing: 3 stick figures holding hands under the words Team Turner. Sophia sank onto a stool beside Emma, lifting the paper. "I love it," she said, smoothing out the lines. She looked at Alex, who paused in his dishwashing. "I think I'm ready for tomorrow, too." Alex's smile split his face with warmth. "Glad to hear it." A hush settled as the final customers left and the late afternoon sun painted long stripes across the counter. Sophia wiped down the tabletop, tracing her fingertips across the smooth formica. She felt the day's honest labor settle in her bones like a quiet promise. As they turned off the lights and closed the register, Sophia understood that loyalty could shift in ways she'd never anticipated. Her phone would start again buzzing tonight, full of demands and deadlines. But here among pancakes, spilled fries, and a little girl who saw her as both friend and family, she had learned something deeper: presence could heal more than perfection ever would, and sometimes the hardest loyalty to honor was the one to your own heart. The bell above the diner's door jingled sharply, cutting through the late morning lull like a honking horn. Sophia looked up from where she was stocking napkin dispensers, expecting Emma or a familiar face. Instead, a man in an expensive charcoal suit stalked in, phone pressed to his ear. He barked, "I don't care about your excuses. I need her back at the corporate office now," before snapping the phone shut and staring around the room with steely eyes. Sophia froze. Her chest tightened as she recognized the man. David Caldwell, her CFO, had flown in for an emergency board meeting. She'd known he'd track her down eventually, but the timing felt brutal. She glanced toward Alex, whose expression flickered from concern to quiet resolve. Emma, sitting in her booth, watched with curious eyes. David strode to the counter, sleek shoes clicking against the worn linoleum. "Sophia," he said, voice low and sharp, "you have until 5 o'clock to fly back. The board expects you in New York by tomorrow morning. Our merger talks are collapsing, investors are threatening to withdraw, and frankly, this roadside detour has cost us enough." He leveled a thumb at the swinging doors leading to the kitchen. "I need you to pack up and come with me. Now." Sophia's throat constricted. She'd faced hostile investors, regulatory crackdowns, and hostile takeovers, but never an ultimatum delivered in the middle of Alex's diner with the plate of pancakes half filled at a nearby table. She swallowed, hands trembling. "David, Alex stepped forward, apron dangling at his side. He was a head shorter than David in heels, but he planted himself firmly. "Hey, buddy." Alex said, voice respectful but firm. This isn't your boardroom and those aren't your rules. David turned on him, eyes narrowing. And who the hell are you? Name's Alex Turner, he replied evenly. Owner of this establishment, and I might add Sophia's host. Alex nodded toward Sophia, whose cheeks were flushed. She's not on your schedule today. He squared his shoulders. Not now, not here. David's lip curled. This is a personal favor gone too far. I'm here on behalf of the board. If she doesn't comply, I'll have no choice but to recommend she be removed as CEO. A hush fell over the diner. The few remaining customers watched forks suspended midair. Emma climbed off her stool and stood beside Alex, her small frame resolute. You're not taking her away? Emma said, voice clear. Sophia is our friend. You don't scare me. David's eyes flicked to the 7-year-old, then back to Alex. This is business, sweetheart. You wouldn't understand. Alex crouched to Emma's level, putting an arm around her shoulders. She does, he told David. She understands that family comes first. David straightened, glancing at Sophia. I'm sorry, Sophia, but the company's in crisis. Without you, we bleed red ink. He tucked his phone into his coat pocket. Your personal vacation ends now. Sophia felt tears welling but refused to blink. She stepped forward, voice steady but trembling with emotion. David, I appreciate your concern for the company. I do. But right now I have responsibilities that don't appear on any shareholder report. She motioned to Alex, to Emma, to the quiet warmth of the diner itself. I made a choice last night to show up here to be present, and I'm not willing to walk away from that. David's mouth tightened. He looked around the diner, plates at tables, coffee cups, steaming laughter rising like a gentle tide. You have exactly 10 minutes to reconsider, he snapped, then pivoted sharply and stalked back out the door, leaving the bell's echo hanging in the air. Sophia exhaled so sharply she thought she might collapse, but Alex and Emma flanked her. Emma wrapped her small arms around Sophia's leg, and Alex placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You okay? Alex asked, voice warm. Sophia knelt to hug Emma first, then looked up at Alex. I think so, she said, tears threatening but joy rising stronger. Thank you for standing up for me. He helped her to her feet. Always. He gave her apron a playful flick. Now how about we get back to work? Lunch rush starts in an hour. Sophia straightened her posture, squared her shoulders, and slipped behind the counter as she had learned to do. She filled a coffee pot, greeted Mrs. Jenkins with a fresh cup, and noted each order with confidence. With every pour and every smile, her corporate armor melted further, replaced by the quiet courage that comes from choosing love over fear. In that tense showdown, Sophia realized that true leadership wasn't just about boardroom battles. It was about standing for what mattered, even when the stakes were higher than any merger or acquisition. And here in this small-town diner, she had found a new kind of strength, one that would guide her in every room she ever entered. Sophia sat curled on the edge of Alex's living room couch, the glow of her laptop the only light in the darkened house. Emma's bedtime story lay open on the coffee table, pages bookmarked with a pink ribbon. The hush was so complete she could hear the soft whistle of the radiator in the corner and her own heart pounding in her chest. She clicked through the airline's booking site, her corporate instincts taking over as she selected the earliest flight back to New York. Guilt gnawed at her, leaving behind Pancake's laughter, Emma's bright eyes, and the man who'd risked everything to protect her decision to stay. But the CFO's warning echoed in her mind: board meetings, merger deadlines, investors paying close attention to her absence. The empire she'd built teetered on her next move. A small confirmation pop-up appeared. Flight booked. She stared at the reservation number shimmering on the screen. The weight of her choice pressed heavily on her shoulders. She closed the laptop and exhaled a breath she felt in her bones. She stood, pacing across the threadbare rug, her hands brushing old family photos on the mantel. Alex and his wife beneath red autumn leaves. Emma in a yellow raincoat splashing in a puddle, a simple drawing of their diner silhouetted against a big city skyline. The images pulsed with warmth she'd never let herself crave in her ivory tower. Her phone buzzed against the couch cushion. She retrieved it and saw Emma's name in playful handwriting on a text bubble. Are you coming back for dinner? She paused the message, glowing like a beacon. The child's hopeful question cut through her turmoil. Sophia's throat tightened as she replayed the hesitant excitement in Emma's voice earlier that day when she asked if Sophia would stay for one more meal. Emma had looked at her with such trust, such uncomplicated faith, that she'd promised without thinking. The memory made Sophia's chest ache. She sank back onto the couch, tears gathering behind her eyelids. A soft knock sounded at the doorframe. Alex stepped in, silhouetted by the dim hallway light, hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jeans. His eyes were gentle but wary, as though he'd sensed the tension radiating from her. "Don't stay up," he said quietly. "Coffee's on the counter if you need it." His voice carried a tinge of something sadness, loneliness that tightened the coil inside her. She looked up, blinking back tears. I booked a flight." She confessed, voice barely above a whisper. Alex's face went still. He closed the door behind him and sat on the arm of the couch, leaving space between them. The hush stretched until it felt loud. Finally, he said, "I saw David leave. He gave you that deadline." "I know," she replied, wrapping her arms around herself. "I can't ignore it. The company are investors, they need me." He nodded, but his gaze drifted to the empty pillow behind her on the couch. "And Emma needs you." Her throat constricted. "I know." She rested her head against the back of the couch, eyes focused on the ceiling. "I feel like I'm being torn in two." He glanced around the living room, the children's books, the mismatched cushions, the coloring supplies piled in the corner. "This is my world," he said softly. "This is Emma's world. We made space for you here." She closed her eyes, the words hitting her like waves. "I want to finish those merger talks. I want to keep the hotels running, but I don't want to lose you or Emma." Alex slid off the armrest and sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. "You're not going to lose us," he said. "But you need to decide if this is a place you want to build a life, not just a taste of one." Sophia exhaled, tears leaking free. She slid her phone across the armrest so Alex could see Emma's text. "Are you coming back for dinner?" He read it, then looked into her eyes. "What do you want to do?" he asked, voice urgent yet patient. Her chest tightened as she swallowed the lump in her throat. She thought of Emma's bright laughter at the counter, of the thrill in Alex's eyes when she mastered her first perfect pancake flip, of the quiet comfort of a late-night porch swing beneath the stars. She thought of the halls of her corporate office, the relentless deadlines, the sterile perfection, and felt a hollow ache. "I want to stay," she said, voice trembling but clear. "I don't know if I can give up everything, but I know I don't want to walk away from this." She pointed at the drawing on the mantel, a rainbow arcing over the diner stick figures holding hands. "This feels real. It feels possible." Alex studied her face, his own features softening. He lifted her hand and pressed it to his heart. "Then you belong here." She let herself relax into the cushions, closing her eyes as relief washed over her. The flight confirmation sat forgotten on the laptop in the other room. In its place arose a new certainty. Her life would be measured not by charts or share prices, but by pancake breakfasts, crayon artwork, and the steady presence of a family that chose her. Outside, the wind whispered through the eaves, carrying the promise of a new dawn. Inside, Sophia and Alex sat together in comfortable silence, their hearts aligned by the cost of staying and the courage it had taken to choose love over fear. Morning light filtered through the blinds as Sophia raised her hand to knock on the familiar white door. Her heart fluttered a blend of excitement and nervous anticipation. In her palm lay a small silver key ring, 3 sturdy keys she had turned over a dozen times in her pocket since early dawn. She pressed the doorbell. Its soft chime echoed through the quiet house. Alex appeared in the doorway, his pajamas showing beneath an open flannel shirt, sleep still clouding his eyes. Emma, drowsy but curious, peeked from behind him. "You're early," Alex mumbled, blinking as he took in Sophia's radiant smile. "I have something for you," Sophia said, stepping inside. She held out the keys. "I signed the lease on that corner space." She unclutched the keys and let them dangle between them. "It's ours, Hearth and Home Cafe." For a moment, silence reigned. Alex's jaw loosened before he inhaled sharply. He closed the door behind her and reached for the keys, turning them one by one in his hand. "You did this!" His voice was thick with emotion, pride, relief, astonishment. Sophia nodded, stepping further into the living room. Emma scrambled down the stairs and raced to Sophia's side, eyes wide. "Keys," she cried, grabbing them. "Are we opening a cafe?" "For real?" Sophia crouched to Emma's level. "For real," she said, handing over the ring. Emma danced in place, jingling the keys like a celebration. She pointed one at the air. "I'm the co-founder," she announced, voice triumphant. Alex's eyes softened as he watched the pair. He guided Sophia to the couch where she sat, the morning sun wrapping her like a warm hug. He joined her, leaning in close. "You really believe in this," he said, voice low. "I do," Sophia replied, folding her hands in her lap. "I believe in you and Emma and in this community. I wanted to give something back beyond my presence. A place where people feel seen just like I felt seen here." Alex shifted on the couch, fingers brushing Emma's curls as she bounced beside them. "I never thought, running a diner is enough work. A cafe." His eyebrow lifted, but his grin was genuine. "You're all in." "I'm all in," she affirmed, meeting his gaze. The last traces of her corporate armor had fallen away in the months she'd spent flipping pancakes and sharing late-night talks on the porch. Now committing to Hearth and Home Cafe felt like cementing the promise she'd made to stay, to be present, to build something real. Later that morning, they piled into Alex's pickup truck, Emma riding between Sophia and her father, keys clutched in her tiny fists. The cafe space sat on the corner of Maple and Fifth, its old brick facade weathered but full of potential. A faded for-lease sign still clung in the window, and a scattering of dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the door. Sophia's breath caught. They unloaded boxes of supplies, jars of honey from the local apiary, plates mismatched, but charming, a collection of colored mugs donated by neighbors. Alex swept the empty floor with a borrowed broom, while Sophia and Emma unrolled a fresh banner, Hearth and Home Cafe now open. Emma insisted on hanging it herself, stepping on a milk crate to reach. She stepped back and announced "perfect" in a voice full of pride. As the day wore on, neighbors trickled in, drawn by the promise of a new gathering spot. Mrs. Jenkins appeared first, carrying her black-as-midnight coffee mug. She hovered at the door. "I heard a cafe was opening," she said. "Thought I'd be the first." Sophia poured her a cup and offered a warm smile. "Welcome back, Mrs. Jenkins. This one's on us today." Mrs. Jenkins sipped, closing her eyes. "Oh, this is good," she breathed. "Exactly what I needed." Word spread the retired farmers next door strolled in, requesting turkey gravy on the side. Earl the trucker roared in for his triple stack. The high school basketball team piled in for hot cocoa after practice. Sophia and Alex moved in sync, greeting each regular by name, anticipating each order without a written note. Emma darted from table to table, refilling sugar bowls and scattering crayons on the community mural board, a collaborative canvas where customers added doodles and notes. Mid-afternoon, the local pastor arrived with a small group, bringing a plate of homemade cookies as a blessing. "May this cafe bring warmth to all," he said, setting the plate on the counter. Sophia's eyes glistened as she thanked him. It felt more meaningful than any ribbon-cutting ceremony she'd ever attended in her corporate life. By evening, the space hummed with conversation and laughter. Edison bulbs strung across the ceiling cast a golden glow over mismatched tables. The faint aroma of cinnamon and fresh bread mingled with the low melody of folk music playing from an old radio. Sophia paused at the counter, watching Alex knead dough for tomorrow's breakfast pastries. His hands, once used for thermostat valves and griddles, now shaped loaves destined for toasting. She leaned against the counter beside him. "Look at this," she murmured, arms around her middle. "You did this." He glanced over, flashing a grin. "We did this." Emma appeared in the doorway, yawning and rubbing her eyes. Sophia scooped her up, cuddling the child against her shoulder. "Time for bed, co-founder," she said, tickling her daughter's ribs. Emma giggled and squirmed happily. Alex gathered a basket of leftover bread and pastries for dinner at the Turner home. As they crossed the threshold, neighbors waved from the street, promising to come back tomorrow and bring friends. Sophia felt a warmth in her chest that had little to do with the sandwiches she'd served and everything to do with the life she'd chosen. That night, Sophia tucked Emma into bed, the co-founder of Hearth and Home Cafe, clutching her favorite stuffed tiger. She kissed Emma's forehead and whispered, "Sweet dreams, my little partner." Downstairs, Sophia and Alex shared a mug of herbal tea on the porch swing. They watched the cafe's soft lights glow against the dark street, a beacon of hope and welcome. Sophia nudged Alex's arm. "We did it," she said, voice thick with emotion. He reached over and squeezed her hand. "We did." His gaze lingered on the cafe sign's reflection in the window. "Here's to second chances." Sophia leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the boundaries of her old life dissolve in the gentle sway of the swing. Keys to a new beginning lay in her pocket, 3 silver promises that bound her to this place and these people. And for the first time in her life, she knew she'd never trade this imperfect, beautiful community for any skyline view. The night air at the town fair buzzed with the hum of excited voices, the clink of carnival games, and the soft strum of an acoustic guitar drifting from the open-air stage. Festooned string lights arched overhead like a canopy of fireflies, casting a warm glow over wooden stalls selling candied apples, hot cider, and fresh donuts. Emma darted ahead of Sophia and Alex, clutching her latest masterpiece, a crayon painting on canvas board bright with the wild energy only a 7-year-old could summon. On crisp white background, 3 stick figures stood, arm in arm in front of a small brick building, its door ajar beneath a banner that read, "Hearth and Home Cafe." Above the scene fluttered a rainbow, and in uneven block letters, Emma had scrawled, "Our Home." Sophia's breath caught the moment she saw it displayed on a simple easel between the art booth and the lemonade stand. Neighbors paused in their laughter. Fairgoers tilted their heads to admire the painting, and Emma beamed, cheeks flushed with pride. A small hush fell over the crowded walkway, as though everyone sensed the significance of this homemade declaration. Alex drew a deep breath and slipped his hand into Sophia's. She felt the familiar strength of his grip and the echo of every morning they'd shared, the hiss of the coffee pot, the slap of pancake batter on the griddle, the swirl of Emma's laughter as she twirled crayons across paper. In every spilled drop of syrup and every charcoal-edged slice of garlic bread, they'd found themselves not only building a cafe, but forging a family. "Welcome, everyone," Alex said, voice steady and clear. He raised his other hand in a gentle wave, and a ripple of applause greeted him. Sophia felt her pulse quicken, adrenaline mixing with warmth as she stepped forward to stand beside him, the soft fabric of her dress brushing the tops of her shoes. They faced the crowd, the retired teachers who came every Tuesday, the farmers who swapped weather tips under the early sun, the truckers who'd forgiven her first clumsy pancake flip, and new faces drawn by the promise of Hearth and Home Cafe. Above them, the string lights flickered, as if nodding in encouragement. Alex cleared his throat. 3 months ago, I could never have imagined we'd be here. He began, glancing at Sophia and then at Emma, who perched on the edge of the easel's ledge, legs swinging. This town welcomed us. Really welcomed us when neither of us had much to offer, but open hands and honest hearts. He met Sophia's gaze, warmth blooming in his eyes. Sophia decided to stay to help me turn my diner into something bigger than myself, something for all of us. Sophia's heart thumped as she stepped closer. In the glow of lamplight, she saw Alex's familiar features softened by emotion lines of worry, replaced by lines of joy. She lifted her hand, smoothing a stray lock of hair from Emma's forehead. "And I learned that life isn't measured in profits or power," she said, voice rich and clear, but in presence and compassion. "In showing up with all your flaws and finding people who love you anyway." Emma giggled and hopped down, planting her small hands on Sophia's legs. Sophia glanced down, kissed her daughter's curls, then turned back to the crowd. "So tonight," she continued, "we honor this imperfect, beautiful journey." She pointed at the painting. Emma called it "Our Home." And she was right. This place, these people, and this family are home to me. A hush settled as they prepared to speak vows not penned in contract language but woven from mornings of shared coffee, afternoons of awkward apron shifts, and countless moments of laughter and tears. Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper, an old receipt from the shop's opening day. He unfolded it and touched Sophia's hand. "Sophia Turner," he said, voice catching with emotion. "I vow to hold your hand through every spilled syrup and every burnt cookie. I vow to build a life with you, not from perfection, but from the glorious mess of everyday love." He paused and looked at Emma. "And I vow to always make room for our co-founder, Emma Marie Turner, who first taught us what a family could be." Emma threw her arms around Alex's leg, beaming so brightly that passers-by smiled in return. Sophia's eyes glistened as she brushed away a tear. Taking the paper from Alex's hand, Sophia smoothed its crease and tucked it into her apron pocket. She reached out to Alex, drawing him close. "Alex Turner," she said, voice sure. "I promise to stand by you in laughter and in sorrow, to share every empty cup and every full heart. I vow to choose this imperfect life of spilled coffee, sticky counters, and midnight porch talks over any boardroom or bedtime misread on my phone." She slid her arms around his waist. "I'll be your partner in business and parenthood, in love forever, not just for a day." The small crowd erupted into applause and cheers, but Sophia and Alex leaned into each other, absorbing only each other's presence. Emma clapped her hands and laughed, satisfied that her co-founders had sealed the deal with outbursts of genuine affection instead of paperwork. Above, the live band shifted into a gentle waltz, and an older couple invited them onto the makeshift dance floor. Music swirled around them as Sophia and Alex, still hand in hand, took tentative steps. Emma spun beside them, crayon-stained shoes clicking on the wooden planks. Laughter and music wove through the night air, drawing neighbors closer, blurring the line between spectators and participants. Sophia closed her eyes, letting the warmth of Alex's embrace and Emma's bright giggles fill her senses. The memories of boardroom battles faded against the backdrop of real connection: the hush of Emma's bedtime prayers, the clatter of the coffee mug, the rattle of the radiator at 2 a.m., the scrape of crayons on paper. Here, under string lights, these moments wove themselves into something larger than ambition, into a tapestry of love stitched together one imperfect choice at a time. They danced until the band's last note faded into the buzz of the fair, and the lights shook soft reflections on Sophia's tears. No grand declarations were needed beyond what hung in the air, a promise unspoken kept through every spilled pancake and every shared sunrise. In that glowing field of lanterns and music, Sophia and Alex discovered that forever isn't a contract. It's the courage to choose each other again and again in all the messy, beautiful moments that make a lifetime worth living.